Book review time. Fundamentals of Composition by our good friend Vladimir Mogilevsev. This is the final part of the Fundamentals of Art Trilogy. If there's one book you can pick up, it's probably going to be this one. Or maybe Fundamentals of Drawing is probably the one you want. I don't know. But I really like this one. This book basically will teach you how to compose an image, kind of like what you're seeing here. Multiple figures, architecture in the background, colors everywhere, like those sort of old master paintings, the ones that you see when you walk into a museum. He's basically teaching you the process of actually creating one of those. So this book to me is probably the most important. At least for myself, anyway, because I'm finding myself reading this one over and over again because I'm kind of trying to move into grand compositions now. Like, I've got my drawing down pat. I got some painting skills behind me, although I can kind of refine those a little bit. That's the thing, you never really stop learning. But composition and, composing big paintings is still fairly new territory for me. So this has been helpful, and I will tell you right now, I would not have been able to do it without this book. So let's dive in so you can kind of get a glimpse of what to expect. As always, I'm never going to show you the full book because you really should pick it up and support the author. I love these introductions that he has. Like I said in the last video, like, these books really are a work of art in their own right. Dedicated to the 260th anniversary of the Russian Academy of Arts. Okay, so this book was actually made 10 years after the Fundamentals of Drawing. So, yeah, they don't come out very frequently. That's alright, that just makes them more valuable in my eyes. Beautiful image on the cover. Right, so you got your contents, you got the, again, the introduction, what the book is about, how to use it. Let's have a look. And he has like these awesome headers of like each part of the content, like elements of visual design, and then he's got like this awesome image here. God, it's beautiful. Color patch and plane. There you go. So immediately we're starting to discover the importance of colors and how to organize them and how to use color, I guess. And color is actually I said this in the painting book review, but it's kind of a personal thing, really. Like, yes, color theory exists, and yes, your colors should be somewhat grounded in reality if you want things to look convincing. But you've also got a lot of freedom with color at the same time, and you want to sort of, in the same way you design the drawing to make it look better than reality, you also should be designing the colors to make them look better than reality, because that's actually what makes a great painting. I mean, you'll notice that in a lot of these paintings in the examples, the colors aren't really true to life. Like, it's not like they're 100% realistic. They've got a nice naturalism to them, but they're also very exaggerated in parts, especially this one here with like this blood red sky. Very small on the screen to see that. But that's a painting by Karl Briolov. Briolov? Or, I don't know how you pronounce his name. But the painting is called, I believe it's called The Last Day of Pompeii. I think so. Oh, and right next to it, you can see the compositional sketch that he used to design this. So everything begins with a line. Everything just begins with a simple sketch, bit of a scribble. Nothing crazy. You got to start simply. You got to learn to walk before you can run. That's kind of what this book is teaching you, as you're about to discover. I think we've got some Caravaggio in this one here. Bit of Da Vinci. Is this Da Vinci? I'm pretty sure it is. I don't know. Looks like it. Well, it's very Renaissance. I'm just going to skip a couple of pages. this is a nice comparison. Okay, so you got like, the outline of the basic shapes here. So this is a very two-dimensional map. And then you can see how that translates into the final painting. Very nice design. Very deceptively simple. And he's kind of always teaching you like the importance of the big shapes before you go into the small shapes. I'm just gonna have a little sneak peek of because there is one part of this book that I really do want to show you. Oh man, look at this! Look at Vasily Surikov. What a genius! Again, I don't know if the camera's really picking up on that one too well, but that painting is massive in real life, and there's just so many figures on there. I love how he's composed that. Let me just see if I can just quickly. Let me just see if I can just focus the camera a little bit more. Oh, no, that made it worse. Okay, never mind. It's about as good as we're going to get. That's a shame. Oh, well, that's alright. That's alright, because I want you to buy the book anyway, so it doesn't matter if you can't see it that well. You should buy it. This is just a sneak little preview. Oh, man. Let me just find... Well, let me quickly show you this. Some nice tonal sketches. So these are kind of the... so he's figuring... There's a lot of different types of sketches, right? You got the line. And then you got the tones, so you're mapping in the tones. This one looks like a more detailed anatomical sketch. Very small on the page there, but you can see more of the... the pecs are being drawn and the rib cage. It's just a little more... Still very sketchy. Still very scribbly, but the forms are a little more defined in that one. So you can see how the masters, they did multiple sketches before starting on the final painting. It's not like you just jump straight into the final painting. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. You've really got to do a lot of these preparations. And I never really used to do this, which is why a lot of my paintings just didn't turn out as well as I wanted them to. But now I do a lot of this. I will do so many sketches until I've got my idea figured out. And sketches are fun because you can also play around with them. And if you get good at drawing from imagination, then you can really play around. You can twist the human forms a little more. You can put your characters in different poses. You can change the perspective, change the color a bit. You can really... so this is all Michelangelo, by the way. So that's why those sketches look really nice. But you can really... play around a lot more. Like, this is kind of your opportunity to really play around the sketching phase. Now, this is the page that I wanted to show you. I don't know if there's anything... Yeah, it was right after that one. Right. Hierarchy of details. Unity. Now, you look at a lot of these old masters' paintings, and it's very mysterious how they went about composing the image. A lot of people think they use Baroque diagonals, or sinister diagonals, or the rule of thirds, or some geometric overlay, which I do think perhaps the Renaissance painters did that, because their paintings look rather geometric and rather stiff sometimes, I think. But all too often, I read some books about composition, and they've always got this weird geometric overlay slapped on top of the painting, and it doesn't even line up with some of the main elements of the painting. It's like they just kind of threw it on there and decided, yep, that's how this painting was composed. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but if you do, then you'll know what I'm on about. Like, it's just... And then you look at the geometric overlays that they've photoshopped on top of the painting, and you think, that doesn't look right. Like, I don't think they did that. And what Mogilevsev is actually suggesting here, I mean, I've read this whole page, and basically he says the rules of composition changed throughout the ages all the time. But the one thing that actually remained constant was how you organize your values, right? And this is kind of what he's doing in these images. You can see how your eye is immediately drawn to the light shapes, and everything in shadow kind of fades away. And it's the same here with this painting by Repin. You got Jesus Christ next to, I forget who this woman is, but, they're both in light. So your eye, boom, immediately goes to there. He's got more figures here. They look like shepherds. Or, again, I don't really know who they're meant to be. I haven't read the Bible, so sorry. But they're in shadow because they are supporting characters. They're not meant to draw attention away from Christ. And anywhere of this part of the canvas, they are supportive characters. So they are wearing darker clothing and they're in shadow, so they get pushed back in the composition. And this is what Mogilevsev is saying here, is that you organize the composition really based on value and tones, not on some arbitrary geometric composition. You could do that too if you wanted to. But really, you're organizing your values in a way that makes sense. And, he's got like the black and white version of this, and he's kind of numbered everything. So Christ is got number 1, so he's like the main figure. This is number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is down here. 7 is here. This is the darkest part of the painting, this part here. So what Mogilevs have done here is he's kind of ordered the hierarchy based on value, and you can kind of see how that's absolutely true. He's figured out this composition. He's telling you how to actually compose an image like this. And that is just so valuable. It really is that simple, okay? You can make it more complicated if you want to. If you want to use the rule of thirds, if you want to use Baroque diagonals and things like that, you can go ahead. But what he's saying here is make sure you organize your values and your lights and your shadows, because that's what's going to make the image read. And it's also a great way of simplifying the image too. If you put these figures in shadow, like Repin's done here, then they'll kind of blend in with the background more, which brings these figures forward. And that's how you get a good read. That's how you get a good composition, because that's what a composition is all about. It's about getting a good read. So this is really the page I wanted to show you. There's a boatload of information in this book, by the way. Like, you will definitely want to read the rest. So I'm not going to spoil the rest, but that's a brilliant page right there. And it's the same thing here in this painting at the bottom. It's also, coincidentally enough, another biblical painting. I think that's Christ right there. And again, Christ is labeled number 1 because he's the most important figure in the painting. You can't see these numbers here. It's too small on the screen. But he's basically numbering the value of hierarchy, or the hierarchy of the values, I should say. And that's what develops these complex compositions. So that was a revelation to me, because I understood the importance of light and shadow and color and things, but I never really thought about composition that way. I was always taught to compose using the rule of thirds or the Baroque diagonal or whatever. And I hated that, because I was like, I just don't see it in these artworks. Like, I'm just not seeing it. I don't get it. You read books about composition and they're doing like this analysis of the composition using geometry. And sometimes it works. Sometimes you can see that in Caravaggio's artworks. Sometimes you see it in Da Vinci's. Well, especially Da Vinci's. That guy was all about geometry. But in something like Repin, where the composition is more dynamic, I really don't see it half the time. But I do see this. Like, I love how Mogilevsev has actually broken it down, and it's like a big part of the puzzle has been solved for me. So it's beautiful, man. It's absolutely beautiful. So let's just have a look. I'm just going to have a sneak peek at some of the other pages. He's got a page on color relationships, which is really nice. That's a really nice painting. It looks really abstract, but there's some faces. Like, these are dresses and these are women. There's a face there. Again, I don't think you can see that on the camera. Who painted that? That's really nice. The face is actually painted really well. But from a distance, it looks very... wow. Very abstract. Just goes to show you how you can actually use abstract principles in your realistic paintings. Kind of just use it as another tool. So we've got some compositional sketches. We've already seen Michelangelo, Rubens sketches. And so what Mogilevsev has done is he's basically compiled a collection of these sketches, actually done by these were all done by the old masters, and he's organized them in a way where you can see the development of the final painting. This is obviously Samson and Delilah, I think her name was. Quite a few painters have painted that subject, but you can see here's the sketch that he did, and the sketch is, it's actually not that complicated. I mean, there's a bit going on, but it's very scribbly. I don't think he's concerned about proportions too much. I think he's just more concerned about where the figures will generally sit on the canvas. There is some... here we go. This is Karl Briolov, who we just saw earlier. That's the final painting in the corner down there. Again, unfortunately, the quality ain't that great, but it's just a crowd of figures running away from a volcanic eruption or something. It's like... it's an amazing painting. And you can see this is like the... so you can see there's different types of sketches for this final painting, right? He didn't just do one sketch. He did many. Because each sketch is doing a different thing. So he's got the line sketch, which this might have been the original idea. Then he's got some figures. He's kind of sketching out a couple of the figures where they might go in the painting. You can see them. Might be those guys. See, that's the thing. The figures have kind of changed. They've changed position, they've changed movement. So just because you sketch a figure once doesn't mean you're going to leave it there. You're probably going to want to make some changes to it. Some sketches of the figures here, which is actually that guy. Actually, I think it's that guy there. Yeah, it's that guy there. Him there. So that's kind of how he started. You can see how it's developing. And then this sketch, very similar to this first one, but there's more ink involved. So he's actually trying to figure out the lights and the shadows now. And he's doing it very roughly. He's not putting a great deal of effort into it, this, I don't know how long it would have taken him to do this. Probably not very long. Might have been a very, very quick job. And he's not concerned about the proportions of the figures. He's not concerned about the perspective even. He's just figuring out the lights and the shadows in this one. Okay, so each sketch has an objective. Okay, so the initial objective for your first sketch is just the overall composition, just the idea, right? You've got to record it. These sketches are to figure out the figures, maybe the proportions or the gesture, because you can do a lot of sketches just on figures alone, but he's figuring out something there. This sketch, he's figuring out the lights and the shadows. These are more figure sketches. This is obviously color relationships. So he's obviously thinking something warm. There's another color painting here, but this one's a lot more detailed. The figures are drawn a little better. So now he's refining the image a little more. The sky is very red in this version, so he didn't quite figure out the color just yet. This sketch is nice. This is an ink sketch. The shadows are a bit more defined now. He's got the shadows of the figures. He's got where the shades are going to fall on the figures. Shade of the building there. Looks like it's all in light, or maybe he just didn't get around to finishing that. Who knows? But the shadows are a little more defined. He's a little more confident now. And then obviously he's gone into this one. This would have been, I guess it would have been done on a canvas, really. And it's in its own right, it's quite a nice painting to look at, but it's not very detailed. He's not going into extreme detail with this one. The shapes are actually rather basic. Like this figure here, you can see he's painted the hand, he's got the arm, but his face is like there's no detail in that face. There's no eyes, there's no lips or anything. There's just light and shadow. That's it. And same with the buildings. You know, there's the light side of the building and the shadow of the building here, but there's no ornamental detail in this. Um, Same with the clouds. He's got a little bit of detail with the forms of the clouds. Like he's obviously very invested in this, but then this is just a mass of dark. So in this sketch here, this oil sketch, he's very focused on just the lights and the shadows and organizing them on the big shapes. And you can see how, from a distance, that just looks like a finished painting. Like immediately, despite the lack of detail, well, I mean, there's a lot going on, but nothing is overly detailed in this image. And despite that, you can still tell what it is. You can still tell what's happening. And then he's got another line sketch where the figures are drawn more accurately. This looks like... maybe not. I was going to say this might have been... No, because the figures in the final painting are actually quite different. But I was going to say this might have been the cartoon, which he imprinted it onto the canvas maybe, but I don't think that's the case because these are very different. And the figures here are in different positions. But the final painting, this really should have been bigger so you could see it. But it's beautiful. And it's got, the figures are painted in a lot more detail. He's got the big shapes figured out. The clouds are actually more simplified in this version compared to this version. So he was very invested in the sky. And then in the final painting, he just decided to simplify it. Which I'm glad he did. Because it's more effective. It's just these very dark clouds, almost pitch black. And then there's just this crack of light. And this almost volcanic red just splashing down here into the composition. And oh man, what a masterpiece. Absolute masterpiece. So, what do we got? Again, character studies, sketches, portraits, gathering material. That's what it's all about. You're gathering material. And a lot of these guys, this is Sorokov. What a master. I love Sorokov. I think Sorokov is probably my favorite artist. I love Repin as well, but Sorokov is just... Oh, man. Look how many sketches he did just for this painting alone. Look how many. And, you know, it makes me wonder if we're ever going to see art like this ever again. Because they really put years and years of hard work into just one painting. And the paintings are massive, guys. Like, this painting, I think, is 3 meters. Or maybe it's 4. Maybe it's bigger. It's huge. It's a huge painting. Look at all the figures he's drawn. Look at the composition. Look how many times he drew it over and over again to get it right. And then he's drawing each figure. He's drawing all the portraits and the faces. And look, like that guy is that guy. He's drawn him here. Looks like he drew him here from a different angle. And then he went back to this angle here. He did a sketch just of the hand alone. And each of these sketches are done beautifully. They are an artwork in their own right. You could put every single one of these in a frame. Probably sell it for a decent amount of money too. Because they're just gorgeous. They're absolutely stunning. Honestly, the masters, they did not half-ass anything. This was before the days of Photoshop, man. This is before the days of digital drawing and all that. They had to do everything the hard way. Look at this portrait of this girl. This is amazing. And he's changed the portrait. That's another thing. This is why I think it's important to be able to draw from imagination. I'm not saying they didn't have models. I'm not saying they didn't draw inspiration and draw from real people, but they also had the ability to change the sketch just at will because they were so familiarized with anatomy and proportion and perspective. Like, she's wearing a mask in this version, looks like. And then in this one, he's changed a lot of things. The hat looks different. There's like some tassels on it or something. The decorations are different. She's not wearing a mask. You can see her mouth here. This one, he sketched her again. The face looks kind of different, a little more cartoony. And then he's drawn he's painted in these decorative details. It's gorgeous. And then there she is. And that's not even the final painting. I think that's just a painting of just her. You could put her in a frame. Look how much material he's got. Look how many artworks he made just to produce one artwork. And each of these are just so good. He's got like these toothless men who are like smiling, and then there's this guy. This guy must have been a real person, and he sketched him. But then he's got the same guy up here, very scribbly, looks a bit more cartoony. So he's playing around with his figures. He's changing the costumes, he's changing their appearance. All this work. Look, there's the central figure. She's pointing her hand up in the air. He even did an artwork just of her hand. How crazy is that? I mean, it makes sense though that you would put that much effort into the and here's the final painting with all of those figures. Yeah, that's how it was done, guys. Just lots of hard work, frequent sketches, many sketches. Look, that's like, look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages full of sketches. So when you're doing a multi-figural composition, you can't half-ass it. I'm not going to show you the rest of the book. This video's gone on too long. I mean, the fact that I got a 25-minute video out of that just kind of goes to show you just how much information is in this. So you really should pick this up. You really need to pick that up. That's it for the Fundamentals of Art Trilogy. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a lot out of that, and hopefully you pick those books up, because they're going to help you a lot, guys. They will help you so much. I think it's very important that you dig them up. Next book review, got a big one. Scott Robertson, How to Render. This is very useful for learning how to render from imagination. So this will be the next book review. Yeah, this video dragged on a lot longer than I thought, but that's how much information is in those books alone. It's incredible. So I really think you should pick those up so you can read the full things. At the very least, I hope it's given you a bit more insight into how a composition has been created. In the meantime, I will get back to work. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, or don't. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one anyway. And I'll catch you later.